Fashion has been something that I have used to save my life. There would be a day where I would never go to a rack like this. Like, not for me, but like, why? Because society says so.
My big question is, are we on the verge of a big revolution in the fashion industry because of the conversation, the social conversation around gender? Are we ever gonna have a time when you can go on the Macy's website and purchase a pair of sweatpants without first having to click the button men or women?
Personal style. How do you define it? What does it even mean?
In my world, of course, it don't matter. You could be a gangster with a good dress, or you could be a gangster with baggy pants. I feel like there's no such thing as gender.
Style and identity are heavily intertwined. So why is it that we still separate fashion based on gender?
What is masculine fashion? What is feminine fashion or style? Why do we think those things? The most obvious change in fashion historically when it comes to gender is this period after the French and American Revolution going into the 19th century. Because before that, the real difference in dressing was between rich people and poor people. Men and women both wore high heels and delicate fabrics and, lacy cuffs and wigs. But then there was this shift at the end of the 18th century where men started wearing woolen suits and darker colors and less embroidery. There's a fashion historian, John Carl Flugel, who calls that the great masculine renunciation. It's this great variety in dressing to a lot of conformity in dressing. It's kind of a major, so far irreversible shift for ideas about masculine dressing, at least, that I don't think we have recovered from. There's always been exceptions, like in the 1970s during the Peacock Revolution. Menswear was experimenting with softer silhouettes and, flared pants and paisleys and, brighter colors and wilder patterns. But it obviously didn't stick. It's not like the suit devolved or, politicians started wearing, pink and green floral dresses. So it's interesting to see what's happening now because I feel like a lot of the designers who are playing with gender nonconforming fashion now are really pushing back against that.
When it comes to gender in fashion, we can't examine what we wear without first addressing the idea of power, which still plays a big role in the way certain styles are perceived in modern society.
There's a longer history of designers embracing masculine style in the women's wear market. Yeah, it's always been more boundary pushing for men to adopt women's styles. Look at the prevalence of the boyfriend jean, the boyfriend blazer, the boyfriend watch, but you rarely see the girlfriend sweater in menswear. So why is that? Well, the study of gender is the study of power, and so it's always seen as being more destabilizing for people in a higher position of power, historically men, to adopt the dress of someone from a lower status, namely women. And that sort of topples the whole cultural system.
So when we see a man in a dress like this one, or even this one, it still sparks attention. And that second design is now the focus of an exhibit called Gender Bending Fashion at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. When the rapper Young Thug wore this on the cover of his 2016 mixtape, he had fans and critics discussing everything from representation to sex.
You look hot in a dress.
Thanks.
A lot of fashion historians will say one of the primary reasons for fashion is sex appeal. So what does sex appeal look like if you're unhitching it from ideas of gender? I don't really think I haven't seen many designers who have actually figured that part out. You know, there are a lot of people who are doing gender nonconforming fashion, but they're not, a lot of them are very sexy. Like it's very like practical and sort of serious or more casual, you know, with a lot of like graphic tees and jeans. You know, is there one perfect non-binary garment? Is there a truly gender nonconforming outfit? Or is the idea of gender nonconforming more about a lifestyle?
This is Nay, and for them, the idea of gendered clothing simply doesn't exist. And it's an attitude that more and more Millennial and Gen Z consumers believe in. In fact, over a third of both groups shop outside of their gender binary all the time.
I'm the one that makes the fashion androgynous. The clothes aren't androgynous. I think coming more into fashion was definitely a big door that swung open for me to come more into myself. I probably wore a dress for the first time in like a decade last month because I've just come into the space that it's like, I put on a dress because that's what I felt like. That's what my body was calling for. It's about, what do I feel like wearing today? I love this. I love this so much. That's cute.
Nay's journey as a non-binary model has primarily existed in queer spaces. And while fashion can be a creative field that celebrates freedom of expression, parts of the industry are still stuck inside certain boxes.
People in like the main fashion industry outside of the queer spaces that I share and create with, they want to know your gender, they want to know your sizes and clothes, and it's just like, my body is the way it is. What clothes do you have for me to put on? I'll wear whatever.
A few years back, I wasn't even thinking about non-binary clothing, and now I'm creating things that anyone can wear.
Corey Ortiz is a designer with his own brand and is a Project Runway alum. He says it was a poignant conversation with non-binary focused designers that helped him expand his perspective and expertise.
When it came to me, I'm a fashion designer and I create women's clothing, and that's what I focused on. And then it took me sitting with them and talking about it and how things fit and how people want to feel inclusive to really help me create a new brand for myself and create clothing that obviously makes people feel good.
There are certain couture creators gaining attention for bending the rules, Gucci's Alessandro Michele being one of the most popular names of late.
Gucci might be doing interesting things about gender nonconforming fashion, but has that shown up in the mid-range price point brands?
It's still a work in progress. In 2016, Selfridges had a special agender campaign, while fast fashion brands like H&M and Zara have also followed suit. Even Nike recently featured a special gender-neutral ad. But it's not just as simple as removing signs and labels. Changing these categories would mean completely disrupting an entire clothing process, which from a business perspective is probably the biggest reason why it hasn't happened yet.
We're so detached from how clothes get to us. We don't really think about all the different ways that clothing is gendered from, you know, beginning to end. So it's created in a gendered system of patterning, it's draped on gender-specific dress forms, it's sized in a gender-specific sizing system, and then it gets into the market system. I don't know what the cost is in dollars, but you could also look at it from the other end, which is what is the cost of not doing it? Like there is clearly a growing clientele of people who want dress that they think reflects their sense of self.
So if fashion is a mirror, what does clothing's current reflection have to say about our future?
I don't think menswear and women's wear are gonna go away. It's just like, will there be a third category? Will those lines blur?
My wish for fashion is to create a brand that is all about self-expression and just being who you are and feeling good about yourself. I
can go into any department store in any section of the store, boys, girls, women, men, and be like, they're just clothes, those signs are not there. I didn't put those signs there. Navigating the space according to what I need and what I desire has really turned everything upside down in terms of I don't care what other people say. They're just not ready for how much this will just like bust all the boxes wide open and there will be no more boxes left.